Imagine a classroom where students were always excited about your content, no matter how difficult or tedious. That's just a fairy tale, but the stories I have for you are much more interesting, and all the better because they are true. Come, sit a while, and I'll share the tales of a teacher who brought their lessons to life with a few simple hooks. Here's where we begin.
Yesterday, we learned how to calculate the time and speed of moving objects. You did a great job with some challenging content. So today, we're going to learn something new and explore word problems about train travel. Sully, what's on your mind?
Not a lot. Sometimes it's hard for me to picture all the numbers.
I know it can be difficult. The good news is trains are a lot of fun. Have you ever been on one?
Nope, but I bet it would be fun.
Well, we're gonna fix that, because one thing you ought to know is 50 miles per hour on an old-timey train is pretty exciting. Let's take a look at the simulation of a steam locomotive and see what it's like to travel at different speeds.
That looks pretty real.
All aboard, everyone! When the train starts, I want you to imagine that you're the conductor up front. We're going down the tracks and we're going to pick up speed.
Whoa! What's happening? I can't see the station anymore. Whoa! We're flying!
How's 50 miles an hour treating ya?
This is much faster than I thought.
Now I'm gonna show you what it's like to stop the train from this speed. Hang on!
Coming in hot. Wow! I can tell you from experience, it's not gonna take them long to get 200 miles at that speed. That simulation was so cool.
I thought it might help you picture the numbers, like you said. And now we can apply it to this first word problem with a train that's traveling 50 miles per hour. Huh, I'll bet you have a better idea of what that looks like now, Sully.
I do. All right, the train has left the station. Let's roll.
Welcome to Launch Your Classroom. I'm Kyle Pope. Take a minute and picture yourself about to teach new instructional content. Now imagine what your students look like. Are they on the edge of their seats, shaking with excitement? Do you see smiling faces, eager to learn? Are all eyes focused on you with no distractions? Or is it something more like this? Some grunts and groans as you announce what they'll be learning, a few nodding heads trying to fight sleep, and the one student who always insists they'll never need the information in real life. If that seems more accurate, then don't worry. All teachers have been there. Even the best educators deal with these issues from time to time. Being able to facilitate classroom engagement is a skill that teachers need to build to make the most of student learning. There are a number of approaches to increase engagement, many of which we've shared on this show. But one of the best ways to grab student attention is by using a hook at the first of your lesson. Getting a student excited and invested in a new content causes them to open their minds up to new information. Instead of building a wall based on a negative outlook on learning, they become positive, willing participants. So today on Launch Your Classroom, we're going to take a look at ways you can use hooks for student engagement. Let's get started with our first strategy.
It can be a challenge to get students engaged and interested at the start of a new lesson. The right hook can not only get your class excited, but can also help to encourage critical thinking and taking academic risks. Today, I'm using the 4 corners strategy to hook students into sharing their opinions and background knowledge related to the upcoming lesson topic. For this strategy, the 4 corners of the classroom are marked by small posters containing a statement of opinion: strongly agree, somewhat disagree, and strongly disagree. First, have your class stand quietly at their desks. Then ask an opinion-based question that loosely relates to the lesson they're about to learn. Your students should consider the question based on their personal perspective and experience, and move to the corner of the room that accurately expresses their viewpoint. Use a timer to ensure a quick transition with no wasted instructional time. All right, class, take a moment to think about this question. Is it important to trade with other countries? When I say go, move to the corner with the sign that's closest to your answer. You have 15 seconds. And go. Getting students out of their chairs and thinking with their feet means fewer behavior problems due to restlessness and disengagement. Once the timer goes off, use a randomization tool to select a student to call on. There are many smartphone apps you can use, or you can go low-tech with a popsicle stick. It is important for every student to have a chance to participate in explaining their thinking. When you call on a student, make sure to remove their name from the randomization tool until all students have had an opportunity to speak. Patrick, why did you choose strongly agree as your answer?
I'm too nervous. I don't want to be wrong.
There are no right or wrong answers, Patrick. It's your opinion.
Oh, okay. I pick strongly agree because I think trading with other countries is a good thing. I like to trade Halloween candy with my friends, so I can eat a ton of different types. So if all the countries traded, they could get a variety of candy. I mean, resources.
Wow, thanks for sharing, Patrick. And you've made a great case for your argument. It's also important to ask if students would like to change their answers. Giving students the ability to change their mind promotes flexibility in thinking and the safety to take academic risks. Would anyone like to change their answers?
Miss Rachel, can I switch to the somewhat disagree corner?
Sure, Clarice. Clarice, why did you change your answer?
Well, I thought that each country has their own supplies, so they shouldn't need to trade. But then I remembered when I traded my notebook for my friend's notebook, because she loves green and I love pink. I still think trading is not very important, but it could be helpful for making sure countries get along.
That's a wonderful example. Thank you for sharing, Clarice. This is a great active learning strategy that will help students reflect on and talk about their own thought processes before you introduce your new content. Students will feel more comfortable taking academic risks, and teachers will enjoy the benefits of increased student engagement. All right, class, ready for the next question?
You work hard to plan lesson activities that are aligned with the objectives and standards you teach. You check for understanding using formative assessments and reteach students who struggle using differentiated instruction. So why should you also plan lesson hooks? Do they really make a difference? The answer is yes. Lesson hooks will help you capture students' attention, activate prior knowledge, and ensure that every student is ready to learn. First of all, hooks are designed to capture students' attention prior to teaching your content. These brief activities are helpful in engaging all your students before you jump into the lesson you planned. Anytime you've shown a short, content-based video or played a song to introduce a concept, you have used a hook. Another purpose of a hook is to activate prior knowledge. Students don't always realize how their own experiences relate to what you are teaching. One way to establish the value of prior knowledge is to guide students to complete the know and wonder sections of a KWL chart before you begin teaching. You can also encourage students to share their experiences or opinions, then show them how that connects to the content they are about to learn. In doing so, you provide a real-world context that hooks students into your lesson. Finally, lesson hooks ensure that every student is ready to learn before you begin teaching. We all know students come to us from a variety of home environments and are unique in the level of motivation they bring to school each day. When you create opportunities for students to get up out of their seats and talk with each other, you are preparing your students for learning through active engagement. You probably use hooks more often than you know, so use them with intention. These short, student-centered activities set the stage for learning by engaging students before the lesson begins, so that focus during the lesson is on your content where it needs to be.
Aha! Here's another tale that stands the test of time, just like the main character of the story. But I get ahead of myself. Come on now, pay attention.
This is a great plot. Way to draw out the shipwreck suspense, Jasper.
Jasper, you need to put away your journal now. We're about to learn verb conjugations.
Okay.
You are a great writer, Jasper, but these grammar skills are just as important to your work right now.
It's hard for me to see how. I'm gonna be a writer, not a language conjugator. How will I use this in real life, Miss Amelia?
Well, I don't have the whole answer to that, but someone else might. We are going to get started today with a special guest, someone who really needed these language skills in their career.
A special guest?
This is an interview I did with a famous writer, someone you may know. As we listen, write down the ways that learning a new language helped them become an even more successful writer. And Jasper, since you're interested in becoming a writer, I'd like for you to imagine that this is your future self talking to you in the present.
Hey, what am I doing up there? I was about to talk to you about being a famous writer. We're famous? We hit it big with the Cosmic Pirate and the Space Station Rescue, which I see you're writing now. Good. 2 pieces of advice.
Write down any good tips the speaker gives you.
Okay, Miss Amelia. Ready? Pay attention to these Spanish verbs. You're gonna have readers from all around the world. In places like Colombia and Ecuador, you're going to travel. You're going to be worldwide. Wow, that's amazing. But if you can't conjugate your verbs, you won't be able to tell your agents in Bogota if you are arriving or have arrived by plane. And that doesn't even get into editing translations. So I'll be using all this stuff in my real life?
You'll be using all of this in real life. Keep listening.
Got it. What's the other advice? Keep that solar plankwalk moment you just erased. Audiences love a good dance scene. Jasper? Hello?
What did you get from the interview, Jasper?
It was life-changing. All right, Miss Amelia, I had my doubts in the past, but I'm ready to learn verb conjugations in the present so I can use them in the future.
I see what you did there.
My students are passionate about recycling. I want to make this topic the focus of our next objective, but the specifics of how recycling works can be confusing and, well, dry. If I'm not careful, this is what my students will hear. Class, today we're going to learn about the long and meandering process of how ordinances in our local municipality determine how waste materials are sorted. With that approach, I may as well toss my students' engagement in the bin. Instead, I want to create an engaging hook that connects this learning to real-world issues. That will make an otherwise bland topic relevant to their lives, which is sure to grab their attention. First, let's evaluate the objective. This language is tedious and challenging. Let's break it down into a student-friendly goal statement. That's better. Setting a goal gives students a purpose to strive for, which is highly motivating. Using this statement as a guide also helps me keep the lesson on track. Now that we have a plan in place, it's time to ask a burning question. This is an unexpected conversation starter based on a strange or mysterious detail related to the topic. It's sure to excite my students and get them thinking. Class, how many straws do you think the average person in the US uses during their lifetime?
Let's see. 3 straws a week is 150 per year. So far, I've used 2,000 straws.
There are billions of straws in the ocean. To reach that number, I think we must use at least 5,000.
But some people use metal or paper straws, so that could bring the average way down.
Wow, I really like the reasoning behind your ideas. Let's gather our estimates together in a classroom poll. Asking for a vote shows students you value their opinions and gets them invested in the discussion. This exploration of ideas results in critical thinking and an exchange of real-life stories, which is a perfect transition to our next step, presenting an interesting piece of media that adds to the conversation. Wow, class, I see a lot of different answers in the poll. I found a really interesting news segment discussing how plastics are recycled. I think it may help us to answer this very question. Let's take a look.
Just how much of what we recycle is actually repurposed? Tonight we go behind the scenes at a local waste management facility to find out exactly how recycling works and how it doesn't.
Wow, the average person uses almost 40,000 straws in their lifetime? No wonder so many wind up in the ocean.
Maybe if we knew more about how recycling works, we could figure out ways to prevent trash from winding up in nature.
You know what, Jasper? That is a great transition into our next lesson, where we'll be analyzing recycling practices across the world. Let's keep our goal in mind as we open our textbooks to Chapter 7. After the lesson, refer back to the burning question and the media clip. These are incredibly memorable and will help students retain their knowledge for future activities and assessments. Use your assessment data to track which hooks have a positive impact and which ones should be adapted. Also, keep an ear out for new trends that captivate your students' attention and incorporate them into your lessons. That will keep the whole class engaged in what's happening around them, and that will have a major impact in the classroom and beyond.
No matter how interesting you think your instructional content will be for your students, many will need you to justify why it matters. You've probably had students ask you, when will I use this in real life? While the question may seem off topic or even disrespectful, it's an important one to answer. One effective way to do this is with real-world hooks for engagement. After all, not all of your students will pursue knowledge for the sake of pure academics. When you provide students with connections that make your content relevant to their lives, you build their interest in the upcoming content. Successful real-world hooks vary for different age levels. However, a simple one for students of all ages is a reliable news source. An age-appropriate news segment or article provides a direct connection with your curriculum and how it relates to global, national, or local events. And speaking of direct connections, a guest speaker can be very effective. Whether in person or virtual, visiting experts engage both younger and older students. Elementary audiences get excited about having a guest with new experiences to share, while secondary students enjoy hearing from experts in their areas of interest. Check with your colleagues and your local Chamber of Commerce about local speakers. Hooks for engagement can be used in every subject area. Your math students can find fascinating connections between a new equation you are about to teach and a video you show first about the math involved in a space shuttle mission. Short documentaries might inspire your social studies and language arts classes to dig deeper into your new related objectives. A life sciences class could enjoy a virtual field trip hosted by a zoo thousands of miles away. World language students can listen to current popular music from the target culture
before you teach them key vocabulary featured in the song. And remember, regardless of the subject, students love to share their own experiences and listen to others. So, never underestimate the power of a quick, high-interest story related to the lesson that follows. Real-world hooks can help answer the question of how your subject matter relates to everyday life. Just as importantly, hooks boost confidence by giving students something familiar and relatable to access before you begin teaching your content. Incorporate relevant, engaging hooks into your lesson plans and watch your students' interest grow.
Creating classroom engagement is an essential skill for every teacher. One of the foundations for building this skill is developing hooks. When your hooks are successful, your students become excited about the content and are eager to learn more. Remember, it is much easier to get students engaged at the beginning of a new learning block than to try to reel in students who have already disconnected. So we encourage you to work on creating effective hooks for your class and try out the hooks we demonstrated in today's episode. We know you'll be happy with the results. This month on Launch Your Classroom, we're going to continue to focus on hooks for student engagement. We're going to demonstrate how you can use graphic organizers as hooks. We're going to sit down with an expert educator to discuss questions teachers have about hooks for student engagement. Then, at the end of the month, we'll have a little fun with Launch Your Quiz Show to see what you've learned. So be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel to get our upcoming content. And check out launchyourclassroom.com for all your professional development needs. Thank you, and we'll see you next time on Launch Your Classroom. I think we have time for one final story. I'll leave you with the tale of a teacher who literally pulled her students into the lesson. Let's begin.
Even the parts of history that feel a little boring to us are connected to important parts of our daily lives. Before we begin talking about the Bessemer furnace,
Oh, I'm not going to be able to stay awake.
I want to show you some photographs of its modern-day equivalent, the blast furnace.
This doesn't exactly sound like a blast. That is gigantic.
It is. Now imagine you operated something like this.
Wow, that is pretty cool for something from a boring part of history. It looks like a monster.
Doesn't it? Now let's take a look at what the monster really does.
Oh, something is on fire in there.
Almost, but not quite. It's steel.
And steel is in everything.
You're right. We relied on it in the 1850s, which is what makes the Bessemer furnace so important. And we rely on it now. Let's get back to the lesson, shall we? Cool pictures, right? Who would like to start our discussion of modern...
Uses for steel? Thanks to the Bessemer process? I have a few.
Go for it, Clarice.
Well, railroad tracks, and airplanes, and automobiles, and even our school desks. Like this one I'm sitting in.
Those are great observations, Clarice. Thanks for sharing.
It's pretty neat that history is in everything, right?
And the rest is history. Now you have 3 stories of how a teacher engaged their students with simple flights of fancy, a little patience, and hooks to capture the imagination. Tales as old as time. Speaking of which, off you go. You have a busy day with your students tomorrow. I'll have more stories for you next time, but I think you'll create your own too.